your name?
My name is Ruth Roque Wood.
All right, nice to meet you. So for this interview, I just want to ask you, because I remember you talking about something about your mother growing up in Mexico for a bit. And so I was bringing in this interview, so I just want to know a bit more of that for my Mexican Revolutionary History course. And I just kind of want to know a bit more, like a more personal account of what was going on
Right.
for her. So for starters, when and where did she grow up in Mexico?
In the northern part of Mexico, known as Durango. And that was near another section of Mexico called Chihuahua. So I've never been there, but I understand that it's very arid. And in the old days, I think it had like silver mines, and then big estates. And I'm talking about the time of my mom's birth. Now, my mom was born in 1915, and she's not sure of the month because somewhere along the way, either her birth certificate was lost or burned. So she used February as her month date.
I see. Okay, so what was it like for her, and generally speaking, like what were like the communities like when she was growing up?
Okay, during that time, there were a lot of what they call haciendas. Those were large estates, and the hacendados, or the owners of these estates at that time, ran those different ones. And I have to think that her family, her father probably was an hacendado, and she grew up, from what she has told me, in quite a nice setting. They had a large home. They had people that cooked for them, cleaned for them, did those kinds of things for them. And I believe her father was in the cattle business. And he also had workers probably that lived somewhere on his estate.
I see. So like 1915, the president at the time?
I think was Carranza. Now, at that time, there were a lot of, what can I say, inter-country fights. One section was fighting over here and one section over here now. And it was all about the rich getting richer and the poor getting poorer. So at some point, when the president became in power, he promised them that there would be land reform. The problem with that was that he didn't really do that. Instead of giving the land to the workers, or the peons as they called them, he would give that land to the generals who fought for him. So it really got out of hand then. And the poor people, and there were a lot of them, there were more poor obviously than rich, they didn't believe him anymore, so they had revolutions. Now the revolution, and there were several, the one to the south was Zapata, and the one to the north was Pancho Villa. And at some point they met together because they were kind of fighting for the same thing, but they stayed in their respective areas.
What was the most glaring issue she had to deal with growing up?
The absence of her father, I think, because she was quite young. I think because of the revolution, I think that her father and two brothers were kidnapped and she never saw them again. So that left her mother and an older sister. And I don't, if you're in a state and you don't have help and you can't manage it, I think her only decision was to leave.